Yeah, Walter Magaya has since proven to be an expert in using Christianity to manipulate people for for the darkest of things here. And my first interest was on manipulation of women. And when a young lady called Chipo Chakanyuka was killed in Botswana, and they claimed that she had committed suicide in 2014.
I had to help them to go back to Zimbabwe, those ladies. And when they were now at home, I decided to find out from their one, which is my relative. I said, tell me exactly what is going on there. They said, no, if you cannot sleep with the prophet, he will not take care of you when you go outside. So all of us here have not yet slept with him. And that is the reason why we never got transport money to go back home. He just left us here, stranded here.
Yeah, so I, I I then discovered so much about Magaya, and after I talked about Aguma, and I talked about the people who actually died. 4 people died, and the last one that I spoke with, a man whose son died. When I published that this had happened, I recall the father of that man who had died, of that son who had died, calling me and asking me to take the story down because he was scared that Magaya would go after him.
And the phone is on speaker. My mother is listening. She said, I'm very sorry I cannot speak. I'm scared that they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. Can you imagine a prophet, a person who is running a church, that people who sing for him, those who are in that circle, they are afraid of speaking the truth because they feel like he's going to kill them.
2012, Walter Magaya. I got to know about Walter Magaya when during the early years of our team on ZimI, we had some new information that came to us. At that time, when I used to just look at Walter Magaya, I used to see innocence. I used to think, well, this guy's just preaching the Bible. Oh my God, this guy seems to be amazing. And that was also that was the time of TB Joshua, who also at one time looked so great because he once prophesied the death of an African president. And so, yeah, Walter Magaya has since proven to be an expert in using Christianity to manipulate people for for the darkest of things here. And my first interest was on manipulation of women. And when a young lady called Chipo Chakanyuka was killed in Botswana, and they claimed that she had committed suicide in 2014. And then police officers here in Harare were paid money to just kill that story, kill that case. And so from that time, I started digging away a bit deeper and deeper. And then from 2015, when I started working on the gold mafia, and having been tipped by one prophet about one preacher, excuse me, about Hubert Anjo, I I started getting to develop interest in Walter Magaya, particularly due to things that I could see. Number one, I talked about the women. Number two, the fraud, being the investment fraud, stealing from people by claiming that you're giving them stands, and then you never release the title deeds. There are people who ended up dying, elderly men and women who ended up dying without getting their title deeds, who were made to sell their houses, their retirement houses, so that they would get another house that Magaya would give them. That he had used his videos and yeah to claim that he was going to give them better house. I mean the impact on the well-being of Zimbabweans by Walter Magaya have been huge. I mean it's not small. It's going to need a whole volume, and I think I'm going to have to publish that. And then there was then later on he started this scam called Aguma, and Aguma was around 2018, 2019 when he started claiming that he's invented a concoction that is going to heal this that heals HIV. And by the way, Ulu, the lady who designed Aguma, she lives in the UK. She is a herbalist who I personally know, and she had traveled to Zimbabwe hoping to get a market because Zimbabwe allows the selling of herbs for what they call, it wasn't called aguma, it was just supplements that people could have to boost their immunity. So her laptop was stolen by Walter Magaya. And while she was attending his meetings and hoping to market her things, I mean, it was so heavy on her that it ended up even affecting her relationship with her husband, because the laptop apparently belonged to her husband. But fast forwards, what Magaya then did, he took that laptop and then he took the formula, the concoction, he mixed it with other things, and later on, when that thing was tested, the Medicines Authority in Zimbabwe discovered that it had a high level of bacteria that anyone who takes it would just die. That has not been published anywhere. I think it's only on Zimai that we have done a wee bit about it. And then 4 people actually died because of Aguma, and none of the state media have covered it. And having taken Aguma, one of them, a young man who had contracted HIV, within 4 months of him being diagnosed of HIV, he died after taking Aguma. And you and I know that HIV doesn't kill anymore. But him, like a few others, were now taking Aguma because they were believing that Aguma is it's basically the replacement of ARVs. If they had just taken those free ARVs that they get from the hospitals and the like, then they would have been okay. They didn't even need to take what this young man had provided them. And as a fact, they had even sold them. That's the saddest part. So our journalists were on the ground. We managed to tour his properties. We even at one time even I've got a container of some of that stuff, and we've done quite a bit on that. But what has that shown us is that the only conviction that the police have prosecuted Magaya for, it relates to marketing that Aguma. They did not convict, they did not prosecute him for actually poisoning people, because the evidence is there, the documentation is there, and anyone who wants to pick this up from our investigation can do so. If you can find the test results, they are there, we can all give you, and you find that people were fed this poisonous stuff that the Medicines Authority discovered is high, the bacteria is high, that it actually kills people. So this is a big scam, and I could talk at length. I want to go straight to a few so that I round up. And
Right, Simba.
and then yeah,
Simba, that is a very good submission, because it gives people an idea of who Walter Magaya is as a acclaimed prophet, somebody that regards himself as a Christian, and the danger that we face in society with individuals such as Walter Magaya. As you were talking, Simba, I'll still give you time to explain that. I want people to know that I personally uh, also know Magaya in a very strange manner. Very, very strange manner, Simba. Let me tell you what happened. There was a group of ladies who were taken by Magaya from Zimbabwe, from Chirezi, and they were part of his church. And they went to South Africa. There was a meeting for Walter Magaya in South Africa. He was preaching in Pretoria. And those ladies belonged to kind of the top positions in Magaya's church, kind of, top positions, and they went with buses. So people took buses from Zimbabwe to go to South Africa, to Pretoria, where Magaya was going to be preaching. And then uh, this is what happened. As soon as that church was over, I started having calls on my phone at home in Zimbabwe, and the one of the ladies was my relative, and she said that please help us. I said, what is wrong? She said that unfortunately we came here to South Africa through the church of Walter Magaya, and we were promised that we were going to be given food, we were going to be singing, they were going to be presenting things, that stuff that they do in front of the prophet and stuff like that. They were supposed to do those games for him. I'll call them games. Now, she says that we are stuck here in South Africa. We have got no money. We have got no food. And uh, we cannot even come back home because we can't help ourselves. I'm telling you, that was the first time that I heard about this kind of a prophet and his activities. Then I say, so how can I help? They said, I don't know how you can be able to help, but we are in a very terrible situation at this particular moment in Pretoria. Simba, I'm telling you, I flew from Harare to Pretoria, to Johannesburg, then went to Pretoria to meet and to see what was going on. When I arrived at that place, they call it, what do they call it? It was an open field. It has got a name in Pretoria. And then I saw the ladies. They were just sitting and surviving on the road. On the road. No money, nothing. Then I say to them, but you are the senior members of his church, I assume, because you told me you play, music for him and things like that. How is it possible that you guys can be stuck here on the street? And they said, we cannot tell you here. We are scared that somebody can hear you telling us, I'll tell you at home. Just take us back home. I had to help them to go back to Zimbabwe, those ladies. And when they were now at home, I decided to find out from their which is my relative. I said, tell me exactly what is going on there. They said, no, if you cannot sleep with the prophet, he will not take care of you when you go outside. So all of us here have not yet slept with him. And that is the reason why we never got transport money to go back home. He just left us here, stranded here. I said, are you sure this is what happens in that church? She said, I'm telling you the truth. I went to tell my mom. I told my mother to say this is what I have heard from people who are at Walter Magaya's church. And my mother said, can you call that lady again and put the phone on speaker? I want to hear exactly what she has to say. Shocking enough, Simba, the lady was so terrified when I told her that my mother wants to listen through to what you just told me. Can you please speak? And the phone is on speaker. My mother is listening. She said, I'm very sorry, I cannot speak. I'm scared that they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me. Can you imagine a prophet, a person who is running a church, that people who sing for him, those who are in that circle, they are afraid of speaking the truth because they feel like he's going to kill them. What kind of life is that? It is shocking, Simba. But you know what? Simba, African Queen has just joined us. I want you to continue on the line that you were talking about. Make it a bit short so that we can hear from the African Queen. But I'm telling you, this is a real story that happened for one of my relatives, Simba. And I was shocked by the news of what happens at Walter Magaya's church.
Thank you. Yeah, so I, I then discovered so much about Magaya. And after I talked about Aguma, and I talked about the people who actually died. 4 people died, and the last one that I spoke with, a man whose son died. When I published that this had happened, I recall the father of that man who had died, of that son who had died, calling me and asking me to take the story down because he was scared that Magaya would go after him. I just couldn't understand that here you are, your son has been killed, has been poisoned to death by Magaya, and it's very clear that Magaya had done this, and by that time, Magaya had already been convicted of that Aguma concoction. Sorry, marketing it. And so this was the greatest opportunity to make it known so that other people are alerted to the dangers of taking Aguma, and which we later on discovered years later that Magaya continued to sell that Aguma. He simply rebranded it, changed the name to something else, and continued selling it. Our journalist even arrived at the center where they were selling inside those premises where they were selling it, a different brand. And so we have no clue how many other people actually got killed by Magai. And there was a headline that came out on Zimai one time, and some people didn't understand when it stated that there's a man who Magaya killed, and people couldn't understand. They were like, "How on earth? What is this? What is this?" I think it was a relative or something like that, and so people just didn't get it. And the reason, I'll tell you why: our community has fostered fraudsters. There's something that has been done to our mental health that is going to require a legal a legal case, a litigation, similar to what has been done, for instance, on the Holocaust. Remember, where they've had to create a new law to to build the Israeli nation.